Dominic Thorpe had built everything with his own hands. The construction company he started from scratch 15 years ago now employed over 100 people across Nevada. He married his college sweetheart, Vanessa, and they had 2 children, Lily, now 8, and Connor, 12. Their sprawling ranch-style home on the outskirts of Reno stood as a testament to his success, a success that had required sacrifice. "I'll be home by Wednesday night," Dominic told Vanessa over the phone. The St. Louis project was behind schedule, and as always, he was the one who had to fix it. At 42, his once jet-black hair now showed silver at the temples, but he remained physically imposing, a man who still worked alongside his crews when necessary. "Take your time," Vanessa replied, her voice oddly detached. "We refine here." That detachment had been growing for months. Dominic had noticed, but he buried himself in work rather than confront it. Vanessa, once vibrant and passionate about her photography career, had become distant. She started a local studio 3 years ago, specializing in family portraits and wedding photography. Her newfound independence had coincided with their growing apart. What Dominic did not know as he hung up was that Thomas Bellwood had been visiting his home regularly during his absences. Thomas, a local gallery owner who had offered to showcase Vanessa's work, had become much more than a business contact. "Is Daddy coming home?" Lily asked as Vanessa set down her phone. "Not until Wednesday," Vanessa answered, exchanging a glance with Thomas, who sat casually at their kitchen island, drinking coffee from Dominic's favorite mug. Connor watched this exchange silently from the doorway. His young face was a mask of confusion and growing resentment. He witnessed too many of these moments lately, moments not meant for him to see. That evening, after the children were in bed, Vanessa and Thomas sat on the back porch. "We see not keep doing this," she said, though her body language suggested otherwise as she leaned into him. "You deserve better than a man who's never here," Thomas whispered, his hand on hers. At 38, Thomas had the cultured air of someone born into money, something he flaunted with designer clothes and a vintage Jaguar. He's building an empire while ignoring the Queen. "The children complicate things," Vanessa replied. Thomas' smile did not reach his eyes. "Children adapt. Trust me." Upstairs, Connor sat on his bed, a model airplane in his hands, one his father had helped him build. In the adjacent room, Lily slept soundly, innocent to the fracturing foundation of their family. Connor set down the plane and pulled out his tablet, opening the recording app he'd been using for his school project. With deliberate steps, Connor walked to the air vent connecting to the porch below and placed the tablet near it. He'd been collecting evidence for weeks now. Connor understood more than anyone realized. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, Dominic worked late with his site foreman, Reed Calloway, a weathered ex-military man who had been with Dominic since the beginning. "Something's off with the new investor's demands," Reed mentioned, spreading the blueprints across the makeshift desk. "These last-minute changes do not make sense structurally." Dominic nodded, distracted. "I need you to do something else for me, Reed." "Off the books." Reed straightened, instantly alert. "What's going on, Dom?" "Probably nothing," Dominic said, though his clenched jaw suggested otherwise. "But my gut tells me otherwise. I need you to check on my family while I'm supposedly still here." "You think Vanessa's—" "I do not know what to think anymore," Dominic cut him off. "But I need to know what happens when I'm not there." Reed nodded grimly. He'd seen the signs too, the way Vanessa had acted at the company Christmas party, how she'd been evasive when they'd run into each other in town. Neither man spoke what they suspected. Some fears were too distressing to voice aloud. The evidence came in fragments. First, Reed's discreet surveillance photos showing Thomas' Jaguar parked down the street from Dominic's home, then leaving early in the morning. Next, bank statements revealing Vanessa had opened a separate account into which substantial sums had been deposited. Finally, Connor's recordings, innocent at first as the boy did not fully understand what he was documenting, but devastating in their implications. Dominic sat in his hotel room listening to his son's inadvertent surveillance. His hands trembled not with sadness but with a cold, calculated anger that transformed something fundamental within him. "We could leave together," Thomas' voice echoed from the speaker. "Start fresh. The gallery in Santa Fe is practically mine." "And what about the children?" Vanessa asked. "They'd be better off with us. Dominic's never been a real father anyway. He's just a wallet and an occasional weekend playmate." The sound of their laughter pierced Dominic like physical pain. Reed watched his friend transform before his eyes. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. Yet." Dominic's voice had changed. Harder, flatter. "They want to take everything from me? Let's see how that plays out." The next morning, Dominic called Vanessa. The project hit some snags. I'll be gone at least another 3 weeks. Oh, he detected the poorly hidden relief in her voice. Well, do what you need to do. I always do, he replied, ending the call. Within hours, Dominic had contacted his lawyer, Adele Montgomery, a razor-sharp attorney known for her ruthless efficiency in divorce cases. I need everything documented, everything legal, and everything devastating, he told her in her downtown office. Adele's feline smile held no warmth. They always get sloppy. Affairs make people stupid. She's planning something with him. I need to know what, Dominic said. Adele nodded. I'll put my best investigator on it. In the meantime, act normal. Give her enough rope to hang herself. That evening, Dominic called his children as he always did when away. Dad, when are you really coming home? Connor asked, his voice hushed. The question caught Dominic off guard. What do you mean, buddy? I know you're not in Las Vegas anymore. I tried calling the hotel and they said you checked out. Dominic silently cursed himself for underestimating his son. I'm handling some complicated business, Connor. But I promise I'm coming home soon. And things are going to change. Mom's different when you re-gone, Connor confessed. She's not herself. I know, son, but I need you to keep being strong for Lily too. Can you do that? Yes, sir, Connor replied, sounding older than his 12 years. Keep those recordings coming, Dominic added quietly. But be careful. Do not let anyone know. Meanwhile, Thomas and Vanessa's plan was accelerating. Thomas had introduced Vanessa to his attorney, Brendan Walsh, a slick divorce lawyer known for extracting maximum settlements. The construction company is worth at least $20 million, Walsh explained in Thomas' sleek downtown loft. With his absence and your primary caregiver status, we can push for full custody and at least half the business value. I do not want to destroy him, Vanessa protested weakly. Thomas placed his hand over hers. He destroyed your dreams for years, Nessa. This is just balance. What none of them knew was that Adele's investigator had planted listening devices during a supposedly routine inspection of Thomas' gallery. Every word was being transmitted to Dominic, who sat in a rented apartment across town, building his counterattack. The children are the key, he muttered to himself, making notes. Always the children. The ambush came without warning. Dominic returned home unannounced on a Tuesday evening, walking in as if he'd just been out for the day. The shock on Vanessa's face would have been comical under different circumstances. Dominic, she gasped, nearly dropping the wine glass in her hand. The table was set for two. Candles were already lit. Surprise, he said flatly. Project wrapped early. Before she could respond, the front door opened again and Thomas stepped in, a bottle of wine in hand. He froze upon seeing Dominic. Expecting company? Dominic asked, his voice dangerously calm. Thomas was just, we were discussing the gallery showing, Vanessa stammered. Dominic nodded slowly. Of course, business dinner. Thomas recovered his composure, extending his hand. Good to see you, Dominic. Vanessa's work is really gaining attention. Dominic ignored the outstretched hand. I bet it is. The tension was broken by the children thundering down the stairs, Connor leading with Lily close behind. Dad! Lily launched herself into his arms. Dominic caught her, his hard expression momentarily softening. Connor held back, his eyes darting between the adults, understanding far too much. Mr. Bellwood was just leaving, Dominic said, his eyes never leaving Vanessa's face. Thomas retreated with practiced dignity. We'll reschedule, Vanessa. Lovely to see the family reunited. After he left, an unnatural quiet descended on the house. Dominic spent the evening playing with the children, acting as if nothing was wrong. Vanessa moved around them like a ghost, unsure of what Dominic knew or suspected. That night, after the children were asleep, the confrontation finally came. How long? Dominic asked simply, standing in their bedroom doorway. Vanessa sat at her vanity, removing her makeup with trembling hands. How long what? Do not. His voice cut like a blade. Respect me enough not to play foolish. She set down her cloth, meeting his eyes in the mirror. 6 months. But it's more than just, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You and Thomas planning to take my children and half my company while I'm building our future. The color drained from her face. How did you know about Brendan Walsh? About the Santa Fe gallery? About all of it? Dominic stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. I know everything, Vanessa. Every meeting, every plan, every lie. The children deserve stability, she whispered. You never hear. And I'm supposed to believe they have that with a man who's helping their mother betray their father? Dominic laughed without humor. You have not filed yet, which means you still building your case, gathering evidence of my absence and neglect. It's not like that, she protested weakly. Here's what's going to happen. Dominic continued as if she had not spoken. We going to continue as normal for now. You'll tell Thomas to back off temporarily. I'll be the devoted husband returning to save our marriage. And why would I do that? Dominic placed a thumb drive on her vanity. Because if you do not, the recordings on this drive go to everyone we know. Your parents who funded your studio and adore me, by the way. Your church friends. Everyone. Fear flickered across her face. You blackmailing me? I'm giving you a chance to do this with dignity, he corrected her. File for divorce now and it gets ugly immediately. Wait, play by my rules and maybe you walk away with something. The next morning, Dominic was the perfect father, making breakfast for the children, kissing Vanessa on the cheek before leaving for the office. To anyone watching, they were the ideal family. But Connor knew better. That afternoon, he approached his father in the garage, where Dominic was organizing tools with methodical precision. Are you and Mom getting divorced? He asked directly. Dominic considered his son carefully. Why do you ask that? Because she's different when you gone. And because of Mr. Bellwood. Dominic set down his tools and faced his son fully. Connor, adult relationships are complicated. But I want you to know that whatever happens between your mother and me has nothing to do with how much we both love you and Lily. She's going to try to take us away from you, is not she? Connor's insight was unsettling. What makes you say that? I heard her talking to Mr. Bellwood. They did not know I was listening. Connor's eyes welled with tears. I do not want to go with them. Dominic pulled his son into a fierce embrace. Nobody is taking you anywhere you do not want to go. I promise you that. What Dominic did not tell his son was that this promise would require measures that would change all their lives forever. For 6 weeks, Dominic played the role of devoted husband and father, coming home early, planning family outings, even suggesting counseling. Vanessa performed her part less convincingly, her smile strained, her affection mechanical. Thomas had retreated to the periphery, communicating with Vanessa only about business via carefully worded texts. But beneath this facade of reconciliation, Dominic was meticulously building his case with the help of Reed, Adele, and unexpectedly, Connor. Your mother has a meeting today after her studio closes, Dominic told Connor one morning while driving him to school. At the Riverside Cafe. Connor nodded, understanding the unspoken request. At 12, he had become an unlikely spy in his own home. His tablet recording conversations, his keen observations reported back to his father. Some might have questioned Dominic's use of his son this way, but Dominic saw it as preparing the boy for the harsh realities of life, teaching him that loyalty must be repaid with protection. That afternoon, Connor sat at a corner table in the cafe, ostensibly doing homework, his tablet propped up and recording as Vanessa and Thomas huddled in intense conversation several tables away. He's suspicious, Vanessa whispered. He's been too perfect, like he's putting on a show. Thomas reached for her hand. Walsh says we almost ready. The separate accounts are established. We just need to document his past absences better. What about the recordings Connor was making? Dominic mentioned them. Thomas frowned. Has he shown them to you? No. He claims they on a drive somewhere safe. He's bluffing. Thomas decided. If he had anything damaging, he would have used it already. And the children, the judge will see that a traveling businessman not provide stability. With my gallery connections, we can paint a picture of a vibrant cultural life for them with us. Connor's jaw clenched as he listened, his hand nearly crushing his pencil. Later, he played the recording for his father in Dominic's workshop, where they could speak privately. Dominic's face remained impassive, but his eyes burned. You did well, son. They going to try to take us away, Connor said, his voice breaking. No, they not, Dominic assured him. Because we going to beat them at their own game. The next day, Dominic invited Reed and Adele to meet at his construction site's trailer office. She's accelerating her timeline. Dominic explained. We need to implement phase 2. Adele nodded. The financial restructuring is complete. Thorpe Construction is now held by the irrevocable trust with the children as beneficiaries and you as trustee. If she files now, there's technically no company for her to claim half of. And the personal accounts? Dominic asked. Legally transferred to project operational funds. Reed confirmed. On paper, you recash poor right now. Everything is tied up in ongoing projects. She'll claim fraud, Adele warned. Dominic's smile was cold. Let her. By the time this is over, fraud will be the least of her concerns. That evening, Dominic called an old friend from his early construction days. Hector Romero, now a private investigator with questionable methods, but absolute loyalty to Dominic, who had once saved him from financial ruin. I need everything on Thomas Bellwood, Dominic instructed. Not the surface stuff. I need the dirt no one is supposed to find. You know, my methods are not always by the book, Hector cautioned. I do not care if you have to make a deal with the devil, Dominic replied. I want him destroyed. Meanwhile, Vanessa had noticed Connor's increasing attachment to Dominic and began her own campaign to secure her children's loyalty. She took Lily shopping, bought Connor the expensive gaming system Dominic had said was too extravagant, and began painting Dominic as the reason for their reduced circumstances. Daddy's business is having problems, she told them over ice cream. That's why he was gone so much. But no matter what happens, you'll always have me and your home. Lily accepted this with childish faith, but Connor's eyes reflected skepticism. Dad says the business is doing better than ever, he challenged. Vanessa's smile tightened. Your father does not always tell us everything, honey. Later that night, Connor reported this conversation to Dominic, who was working late in his home office. She's trying to turn Lily against you, Connor said anxiously. Dominic closed his laptop. Connor, what I am about to ask you is a lot for someone your age, but I need you to be the man of the house when I see a not be. What do you mean? Your mother is going to file for divorce soon. When she does, she'll try to limit my time with you and Lily. I need you to be Lily's protector. Keep her close. And most importantly, I need you to continue being my eyes and ears. Connor nodded solemnly. I would not let you down, Dad. Dominic placed a hand on his son's shoulder. There's something else. I've set up accounts for both you and Lily for college and beyond. No matter what happens with the divorce, that money is protected. What Dominic did not tell Connor was that those accounts were also monitoring devices. Any attempt by Vanessa or Thomas to access them would trigger alerts and create evidence of financial interference. The chess game was becoming more complex by the day, with the children as unwitting pawns and Dominic moving pieces with ruthless precision. The divorce filing came 3 months after Dominic's surprise return. Despite their performance of reconciliation, Vanessa's petition arrived with all the allegations Dominic had anticipated. Emotional abandonment, financial control, parental neglect. She sought primary custody of the children, their home, and a substantial portion of what she believed was Dominic's personal wealth and business. Dominic accepted the papers from the process server with an unsettling calm. Thank you, he said simply, closing the door and pulling out his phone. The first call was to Adele. It's done. Yes, made her move. The financial shields are holding, Adele confirmed. And the custody counter strategy is ready whenever you give the word. The second call was to Hector. Tell me you have something. Hector's voice was grim but satisfied. Oh, I have something all right. Thomas Bellwood is not even his real name. Meet me at the usual place in an hour. The usual place was a storage unit facility on the outskirts of town. Dominic arrived to find Hector waiting inside Unit 227, surrounded by boards covered with photos, documents, and connecting strings. An analog investigation in a digital age. Thomas Bellwood was born Preston Thomas Kavanaugh, Hector began, pointing to a mugshot of a younger version of Thomas. He changed his name after a scandal in Chicago involving art forgery and being involved with a prominent donor's wife. He was not charged. His father's connections saw to that. But the name change and move west gave him a fresh start. Dominic studied the evidence. This helps, but it's not enough to destroy him. Oh, I am just getting started, Hector grinned. Your boy Thomas has a pattern. He finds wealthy, professionally frustrated women, mentors them, charms them, and then uses them to access their money or connections. Sometimes both. Vanessa is not wealthy, Dominic pointed out. No, but you are. And her photography studio connects her to all the wealthy families in town. Hector pinned up more photos. He has done this in 3 cities that I can trace: Chicago, Portland, and now here. But here's where it gets interesting. In Portland, he left behind a wife and child. Dominic's eyes widened. He is still married? Technically divorced, but he is significantly behind on child support. There's a warrant for his arrest in Oregon, Hector said, handing over a thick file. And here's the piece de resistance. He has been selling forgeries through his gallery. Not the main exhibitions, those are legitimate to maintain his cover, but special, private collections for selected clients. Can you prove it? I acquired one of his recent sales. Hector unwrapped a small canvas. This supposed early work by Carson Walsh was created about 3 months ago in a studio in Oakland. I have the actual artist on record. Dominic's smile was predatory. This is perfect. While Dominic plotted Thomas's destruction, Vanessa implemented her own strategy, focusing on the children. She filed for an emergency custody order, claiming Dominic's rage after the divorce filing made him a threat to their well-being. That evening, a sheriff's deputy arrived at Dominic's door. Dominic Thorpe? The deputy looked uncomfortable. I have a temporary order for you to vacate the premises. You agree to have no contact with your children until the emergency custody hearing next Friday. Dominic had anticipated this move, but still felt the burn of rage behind his eyes. He nodded calmly. May I at least say goodbye to my children? They re not here, sir. Mrs. Thorpe took them to her sister's for the night. After the deputy left, Dominic called Connor's cell phone, which went straight to voicemail. Instead of leaving a message, he sent a text. Stay strong. Trust the plan. The next morning, Dominic appeared at Adele's office before normal business hours. She has taken the children and gotten a protective order, he said without preamble. Adele nodded. As expected, our counterfiling is ready. But Dominic, are you sure about this approach? It's going to get extremely ugly. She crossed the line when she used my children as weapons, Dominic replied flatly. There's no going back now. That afternoon, Adele filed their counterpetition, alleging parental alienation, fraudulent claims, and including affidavits from several of Dominic's employees testifying to his dedication to his family, despite his work commitments. More damaging were the recordings Connor had made of Vanessa and Thomas discussing their plans to take the children away from Dominic. Simultaneously, Hector anonymously provided evidence of Thomas's fraudulent art dealings to both the local police and several of his most prominent clients. Within 24 hours, Thomas's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Vanessa, isolated at her sister's house with the children, was blindsided when Thomas called in a panic. The galleries are being investigated, he hissed. Someone sent evidence of forgery to the police. I have to leave town for a while. What? You see, not leave now. Vanessa's voice rose. I've just filed for divorce. I need you here. In the next room, Connor pressed his tablet against the wall, capturing every word of their increasingly frantic conversation. This was never part of the plan, Thomas snapped. I see not help you if I'm in jail. What about us? What about starting over together? The long pause told Vanessa everything. We need to be practical, Thomas finally said. Handle your divorce, get what you can, and we'll reconnect when things calm down. After the call ended, Vanessa sat in stunned silence. Connor quietly returned to the guest room he shared with Lily, who was absorbed in a tablet game. He sent the recording to his father with a simple message. She knows he is leaving her. Dominic received this information in the temporary apartment he de-rented. His expression did not change, but something dark flickered in his eyes. He made a single call to Hector. "Accelerate the timeline," he ordered. "It's time for Thomas Bellwood to completely self-destruct." The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Friday, but by Wednesday, Thomas Bellwood's world had imploded. Police had seized artwork from his gallery, former clients were filing lawsuits, and his past in Portland had caught up with him in the form of officials seeking back child support payments. Most devastating was the anonymous tip to the local art community revealing his true identity and past scandals. Vanessa arrived at the gallery to find it closed, a police notice on the door. Her calls to Thomas went unanswered. When she finally reached him that evening, his true character emerged. "This is your husband's doing," Thomas snarled. "He must have hired someone." "What are you going to do?" Vanessa asked, her voice small and frightened. She was alone with the children at her sister's house, increasingly aware of how precarious her position had become. "I'm leaving tonight. My contact in Mexico can set me up with a new start." "What about me? What about our plans?" Thomas laughed bitterly. "Our plans? Wake up, Vanessa. Our plan was for you to get half of a multi-million-dollar construction company. That's not happening now, is it? Your husband's too smart. He's protected his assets somehow. So you, just abandoning me?" Tears streamed down her face. "You still have the children," Thomas replied coldly. "Use them. Make him pay for custodial peace." After hanging up, Vanessa collapsed onto the guest bed, her world crumbling around her. From the hallway, Connor recorded her subsequent call to her divorce attorney, where she frantically tried to salvage her case. "There must be something we can do," she pleaded. "He's hidden the money somewhere, I know it." "Mrs. Thorpe," her attorney said grimly, "your position has weakened considerably. Mr. Bellwood was a key character witness for your claims of Mr. Thorpe's negligence. With his credibility destroyed, and these recordings of you two planning to use the children as leverage, I must advise you to consider a settlement." "A settlement?" "He's taken everything. Not the children. You still have primary custody under the temporary order." The calculation that crossed Vanessa's face would have shocked anyone who knew her before all this began. "Then we use that. He'll pay anything to see them." Connor silently retreated from the door, clutching his tablet with white-knuckled hands. His text to his father was brief. "Mama's going to use us to get money." Dominic read this message in Adele's office, where they were preparing for the custody hearing. His lawyer watched his face harden into something frightening. "She's crossed the final line," he said quietly. "Dominic," Adele cautioned, "whatever you rethinking, I want full custody." He cut her off. "Not joint, full. And I want her stripped of everything." "That's unlikely given—" "Make it happen," he interrupted again. "We have the recordings. We have evidence of her conspiracy with a known fraud. And now we have her explicitly stating she's using the children as financial pawns." Adele studied him carefully. "There's something else we could use, but it's risky." "What?" "Your son. He could testify to what he's witnessed. Children's testimony, especially at his age, can be powerful." Dominic's immediate instinct was to refuse. Putting Connor on the stand would expose him to trauma no child should experience. But then he remembered Vanessa's cold calculation, her willingness to use their children as commodities. "Let me talk to him," Dominic finally said. "It has to be his choice." That evening, despite the protective order, Dominic met Connor in a park near his sister's house. The boy had snuck out after dinner, telling his aunt he was getting something from the car. "Dad." Connor embraced him fiercely. Dominic held his son tightly. "I do not have much time. Are you okay? Is Lily okay? We're fine, but Mom is different now. Scary different. She keeps talking about making you pay." Dominic knelt to meet his son's eyes. "Connor, I need to ask you something important. Would you be willing to speak to the judge about what you've seen and heard? It would mean answering questions in court with your mother present." Connor did not hesitate. "Yes, I have all the recordings too. It would not be easy, Dominic warned. People will say I manipulated you or turned you against your mother. I know what I saw, Connor replied with a certainty beyond his years. I know what's true. As they parted, Connor handed over his tablet. Everything's on here. The passwords are in our special code. This special code was a system Dominic and Connor had developed years ago during a phase when Connor was obsessed with spies. A simple cipher based on baseball statistics that only father and son understood. Back at his apartment, Dominic reviewed the recordings, each more damning than the last. Vanessa and Thomas plotting financial strategies, discussing how to limit Dominic's access to the children, even Vanessa coaching Lily on what to say about her father being scary sometimes. The final recording from just hours earlier captured Vanessa on the phone with someone, presumably Thomas again. I do not care what it takes, she was saying, her voice hard with desperation. I need those account passwords. Connor must know something. He and Dominic have always been thick as thieves. I'll get it out of him tomorrow. Dominic's hand clenched so tightly around his phone that the screen cracked. In that moment, something fundamental shifted in him. This was no longer just about protecting his assets or even winning custody. This was about saving his children from a woman he no longer recognized. He made 3 calls in rapid succession, to Adele, to Reed, and finally to Hector. Each conversation was brief and focused on a single objective, ensuring that Vanessa Thorpe would regret ever threatening their children. The custody hearing was no longer just a legal proceeding. It was going to be a reckoning. The family court was packed by 9 a.m. that Friday. News of Thomas Bellwood's art fraud and subsequent disappearance had made local headlines, creating unusual public interest in what would normally be a private custody matter. Judge Eleanor Winters, a veteran of 20 years on the family court bench, surveyed the crowded room with clear displeasure. Dominic sat with Adele at one table, his posture rigid but controlled. Across the aisle, Vanessa appeared with her attorney, Brendan Walsh, looking significantly less polished than in his promotional materials. Vanessa herself had the hollow-eyed look of someone who had not slept in days. The children were not initially present, being kept in a waiting room with a court-appointed guardian. Before we begin, Judge Winters announced, I want to make clear that my primary concern is the welfare of the Thorpe children. I've reviewed the emergency petition, the counter-petition, and the submitted evidence. This hearing will determine temporary custody arrangements until the divorce proceedings are further along. Walsh rose first, portraying Vanessa as a devoted mother suddenly abandoned by a workaholic husband who had systematically drained their accounts upon learning of the divorce. He painted Dominic as vindictive and manipulative, suggesting the recordings were edited or obtained under duress. Furthermore, Your Honor, Walsh continued smoothly, Mr. Thorpe has clearly orchestrated the recent troubles of Mr. Bellwood to discredit my client by association. This pattern of vindictive behavior makes him unsuitable for custody. When Adele's turn came, her approach was methodical and devastating. Rather than making speeches, she simply presented evidence. The unedited recordings, financial records showing how Thorpe Construction had been legally restructured years earlier as part of standard business planning, and affidavits from Connor's teachers noting his academic decline during the months Dominic was supposedly being kept from the children. Your Honor, Adele concluded, what we have here is not a vindictive father, but a mother who conspired with her paramour to separate Mr. Thorpe from both his children and his livelihood. The temporary protective order was obtained under false pretenses as evidenced by Mr. Thorpe's son's own recordings. Judge Winters frowned. These recordings were made by a 12-year-old boy without the knowledge or consent of his mother. Yes, Your Honor, Adele acknowledged. Connor Thorpe began recording conversations in his home initially for a school project on family oral histories. What he captured instead was the systematic plotting of his mother and Mr. Bellwood. I'd like to hear from the children, the judge decided. Particularly Connor, given his role in this evidence. Connor entered the courtroom looking smaller than his 12 years in a pressed shirt and tie. His eyes found his father immediately, drawing strength from Dominic's reassuring nod. After establishing Connor's understanding of truth versus lies, Judge Winters asked him directly about the recordings. Did your father ask you to make these recordings, Connor? No, ma'am, Connor replied. I started doing it on my own because he hesitated, glancing at his mother. You can speak freely here, the judge encouraged. Because Mom was different when Dad was gone. She and Mr. Bellwood talked about taking us away, about making Dad pay. I was scared. And when did your father find out about these recordings? After he came home early and found Mr. Bellwood at our house? I showed him then because I thought he should know the truth. Walsh objected, claiming parental manipulation, but the judge overruled him. Connor, she continued, has your father ever asked you to say anything specific about your mother in court today? No, ma'am. He just said to tell the truth. Vanessa's face had gone from pale to ashen. When 8-year-old Lily was brought in next, she appeared confused and anxious, clutching a small stuffed rabbit. Hi, Lily, the judge said gently. I just want to ask you a few questions about your mom and dad. Okay. Lily nodded timidly. Do you spend time with your dad? Not anymore, Lily answered. Mommy says he's too busy with work to see us. And before that, did he spend time with you when he was home? Lily brightened. He taught me to ride my bike and helps with my science projects. We have daddy-daughter dates on Saturdays when he's home. Has your dad ever scared you or made you feel unsafe? Lily looked genuinely confused. No. Daddy's the one who checks for monsters under the bed. Lily, the judge said carefully, did your mom ever tell you to say anything about your dad being scary? The little girl's eyes darted to her mother. She said to remember the time Daddy yelled, but he only yelled because I almost ran into the street. He was scared, not mean. After the children were escorted out, Judge Winters called a brief recess. When proceedings resumed, her expression had hardened. Based on the evidence presented, I am inclined to vacate the emergency custody order. However, before I make my final ruling, there's an unusual request. She turned to Connor's guardian, Ed Lyham. Connor has asked to present additional evidence he believes is relevant. Walsh leapt to his feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. What additional evidence could a child possibly have that has not been submitted by counsel? The judge silenced him with a look. Mr. Walsh, given that this child's recordings form the backbone of your opponent's case, I'm inclined to hear what else he may have documented. Connor was brought back into the courtroom, this time carrying his tablet. He approached the bench with surprising composure. Your Honor, he began, his voice initially trembling but steadying as he continued, I'd like to play a video from Mom's phone. Vanessa's sharp intake of breath was audible throughout the courtroom. Objection, Walsh called. Any such video would be obtained without consent and potentially in violation of privacy laws. Your Honor, Connor interjected before the judge could rule, I did not take Mom's phone. She sent this video herself to Dad's phone 2 days after he got locked out of our house. Judge Winters raised an eyebrow. Proceed, Connor. The courtroom fell silent as Connor connected his tablet to the courtroom's display system. The video began playing, showing Vanessa in what appeared to be the master bedroom of the Thorpe home. Her expression was triumphant, almost cruel. I thought you should see how well we're doing without you, Vanessa's recorded voice echoed through the courtroom. The camera panned to show Thomas lounging on Dominic's side of the bed, then moved to capture photographs of the children displayed on the dresser. They do not even ask about you anymore, she continued. Connor's gotten over his daddy worship and Lily barely remembers your weekend outings. The real Vanessa shrank in her seat as her digital counterpart continued her taunting monologue, revealing not just her affair, but her explicit intention to use the children as leverage for financial gain. Most damning was the moment Thomas appeared beside her, taking the phone to add his own message. Face it, Thorpe. You've lost your family. Soon you'll lose everything else too. Going after my gallery? Two can play that game. The video ended with Vanessa's laugh and a final twist of the knife. Enjoy your lonely apartment while we enjoy your house, your bed, and your children's love. The silence that followed was absolute. Judge Winters' face had transformed from judicial neutrality to barely contained outrage. Mrs. Thorpe, she finally said, her voice dangerously quiet, would you care to explain this video? Vanessa seemed to collapse inward. I was angry. Thomas said it would help our negotiating position if Dominic thought the children had forgotten him. Negotiating position, the judge repeated flatly. You mean using your children as pawns in a financial dispute with their father? Walsh attempted to interject, but the judge silenced him with a raised hand. I've seen enough, she declared. The emergency custody order is not only vacated but was clearly obtained under false pretenses. Temporary custody of both children is awarded to Mr. Thorpe with Mrs. Thorpe granted supervised visitation only until the final custody hearing. She turned to Dominic. Mr. Thorpe, while the court sympathizes with your position, I must caution against using children as intelligence gatherers in family disputes. However, given the circumstances and the clear, unprompted nature of Connor's recordings, I'm making an exception in this case. As the judge continued outlining the terms of her ruling, Dominic maintained his composure, but his eyes never left Vanessa's face. There was no triumph in his expression. Only a cold finality that made Vanessa finally understand what she had unleashed. Outside the courtroom, as Dominic embraced his children, Vanessa approached, her face streaked with tears. "Dominic, please," she began. "This has all gone too far. We can work something out." Dominic straightened, positioning himself between her and the children. "There's nothing to work out. You showed exactly who you are." "I made a mistake," she pleaded. "But they were still my children." "You forfeited that claim when you used them as weapons," Dominic replied, his voice low enough that the children could not hear. "This is just the beginning, Vanessa. By the time I'm done, you'll have nothing, not the house, not money, not even unsupervised time with them." "You see, not be this cruel," she whispered. Dominic's smile never reached his eyes. "I learned from the best." The weeks following the custody hearing were a systematic dismantling of Vanessa's life. With Thomas Bellwood having fled to Mexico to avoid fraud charges and child support enforcement, she found herself alone, facing not just divorce proceedings, but potential criminal charges for her role in what prosecutors were calling a conspiracy to commit financial fraud related to Thomas's gallery operations. Dominic had returned to the family home with the children while Vanessa moved into a small apartment paid for by her increasingly skeptical parents. Her photography business suffered as clients, hearing rumors of the court case, quietly took their business elsewhere. The financial resources she had counted on, Thomas's gallery connections, and her share of Dominic's assets had evaporated. "We need to discuss a settlement," Brendan Walsh advised in his office, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "The evidence against you is substantial, and Mr. Thorpe's legal team is pushing for full custody with only minimal visitation rights for you." "He not take my children," Vanessa insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "Mrs. Thorpe," Walsh said, "the video you sent him alone is evidence of parental alienation. Add to that the recorded conversations about using the children for financial leverage, and your case for even joint custody is extremely weak." "What about the business?" "He not have hidden everything. The business restructuring was legally done years ago with proper documentation. The trust for the children was established when they were born. I've had forensic accountants look at everything. It's airtight." Vanessa's world continued to contract. Her sister, initially supportive, had grown distant after seeing the courtroom video. Her parents, conservative and traditional, were openly discussing their disappointment in her choices. Friends who had rallied around the narrative of an abandoned wife had retreated in the face of evidence to the contrary. Most painful was Connor's coldness. During supervised visitations, he remained polite but detached, answering her questions with minimal responses. Lily still showed affection, but even she had begun to echo her brother's reserve, watching Vanessa with confused, wary eyes. "They turning my children against me," Vanessa complained to the visitation supervisor. The woman, a veteran social worker named Helen, replied with professional neutrality, "Children are perceptive, Mrs. Thorpe. Connor in particular understands more than you might think." Meanwhile, Dominic was rebuilding his family with methodical care. He arranged his work schedule to be home when the children returned from school. He hired a housekeeper to maintain the home, but insisted on cooking dinner himself most nights, establishing new family rituals to replace the fractured old ones. When not with the children, he continued working with Adele to ensure the divorce settlement would be as favorable as possible, and with Hector to gather evidence of Thomas's continued criminal activities in Mexico. Evidence that would further implicate Vanessa if she did not agree to his terms. The prosecutor's office is interested in the connection between Thomas's art fraud and Vanessa's studio, Adele reported one afternoon. Apparently, some of the fraudulent provenances were created using her photography and documentation. Was she knowingly involved? Dominic asked. That's unclear, but it gives us another pressure point. She's looking at potential criminal charges unless she can demonstrate cooperation. Dominic nodded. Make sure the children are completely insulated from any criminal proceedings. I want nothing touching them. Already done. The trust structure protects their inheritance regardless of what happens with the criminal investigation. That evening, as Dominic helped Lily with her science project, Connor approached with an expression that had become all too familiar, the look of a child forced to grow up too quickly. Dad, is Mom going to go to jail? Dominic set down the glue gun he'd been using. Who told you that? I overheard your call with Ms. Montgomery about criminal charges. Dominic sighed. Connor, you need to stop eavesdropping on adult conversations. I'm trying to protect our family, Connor protested. Like you asked me to. The words hit Dominic like a physical blow. In his determination to protect his children from Vanessa's manipulations, had he turned his son into something no child should be, a spy in his own home carrying burdens no 12-year-old should bear. "Come here," Dominic said, pulling his son into an embrace. "You've done more than enough. From now on, I need you to focus on being a kid. Let me handle the adult problems." "But what about Mom?" Connor persisted. "Your mother made some bad choices, but she is still your mother. Whatever happens between us does not change that." That night, Dominic made a decision. The ruthless dismantling of Vanessa's life had served its purpose. She was isolated, financially vulnerable, and legally exposed. Continuing to pursue criminal charges would only further traumatize the children, particularly Connor, who was already showing signs of the emotional toll. The next morning, he called Adele. "I want to offer a settlement. Generous visitation rights in exchange for full legal custody. No pursuit of criminal charges unless she violates the terms." "Are you sure?" Adele sounded surprised. "We have her cornered. The children have been through enough," Dominic replied. "I want this finished." The settlement offer was delivered to Vanessa that afternoon. In addition to the custody arrangements, it included a modest monthly support payment enough to maintain a decent apartment and restart her photography business, but not the wealthy lifestyle she had envisioned with Thomas. Vanessa read the terms with tears streaming down her face. For the first time in months, she saw not an escape hatch, but a lifeline, a chance to retain some relationship with her children and rebuild some semblance of a life. "He's being more generous than you deserve," Walsh told her bluntly. "Take the offer." As Vanessa signed the agreement, a text arrived from an unknown Mexican number. "Found a buyer for the remaining pieces. Need your documentation skills again. Good money. T." She stared at the message for a long moment, then blocked the number without responding. Thomas Bellwood had cost her everything that mattered. There would be no second chance for him. That weekend, during her supervised visitation, Vanessa arrived with a different demeanor, humbled, genuine in a way she had not been in years. "I've signed the agreement," she told Dominic as he dropped the children off. "Thank you for not pursuing the criminal charges." Dominic's face remained impassive. "This is not forgiveness, Vanessa. This is for them, not you." She nodded, accepting this harsh truth. "I know, but I'm going to earn back their trust and maybe someday a little of yours." "Do not mistake pragmatism for weakness," Dominic warned quietly. "If you ever try to use the children against me again, what happened these past months will seem like mercy." As he walked away, leaving Vanessa with their children and the court-appointed supervisor, Dominic felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Only the heavy certainty that he had done what was necessary to protect his family and would do it again without hesitation if needed. The destruction of Vanessa's carefully constructed plans had been complete. The only question remaining was whether anything could be rebuilt from the ashes and whether Dominic would ever allow it. 6 months after the custody settlement, life had found a new rhythm for the Thorpe family. Dominic had restructured his business operations to allow him more time at home, delegating much of the travel to Reed and other trusted lieutenants. The divorce was finalized, with the terms largely matching the settlement agreement, full custody to Dominic with structured visitation for Vanessa. The children were adapting in their own ways. Lily, resilient as only young children can be, had adjusted to the new normal of splitting time between her father's home and supervised visits with her mother. Connor, however, remained changed by the experience, more serious, more watchful, a shadow of adulthood falling across his features too early. On a crisp Saturday morning, Dominic sat on the sidelines of Connor's baseball game, watching his son pitch with focused intensity. Beside him sat Helen, the social worker who had supervised the early visitations and had since become something like a family counselor. "He's still carrying too much," Helen observed, nodding toward Connor. "Taking responsibility for things no child should." Dominic sighed. "I know, I've tried telling him it's not his job to protect the family anymore, but you made it his job during the divorce," Helen finished gently. "Children take those assignments seriously, Dominic, they do not easily relinquish them." On the pitcher's mound, Connor struck out another batter, his face showing no joy in the accomplishment, only grim satisfaction at a task well executed. "He reminds me of myself at that age," Dominic admitted. "Too serious, too determined to control everything." "Is that what you want for him?" The question lingered between them as the inning ended and Connor jogged to the dugout, exchanging no high fives with teammates, his eyes immediately seeking his father for approval. Later that day, as they celebrated the team's victory with ice cream, Dominic broached a difficult subject. "Your mom called yesterday. She's completed the parenting classes and therapy sessions. The court is considering removing the supervision requirement for her visitations." Connor's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. Are you going to fight it? I'm asking what you think about it, Dominic replied carefully. Does it matter what I think? You're the one who decides everything. The bitterness in his son's voice caught Dominic off guard. Connor, of course it matters. But I'm still the parent here. Like Mom was the parent when she was trying to take us away, Connor challenged. Dominic set down his own spoon, studying his son. Is that what this has been about? You becoming the parent because you do not trust either of us to do it right. Connor's eyes filled with tears, which he stubbornly refused to let fall. I just do not want things to change again. Every time they change, it gets worse. That evening, after both children were asleep, Dominic sat alone in his home office reflecting on the past year's events. On his desk sat a folder containing the final piece of leverage he had maintained against Vanessa. Evidence linking her more explicitly to Thomas's art fraud scheme. Evidence he had chosen not to use in the settlement. His phone buzzed with a text from Hector. Bellwood spotted back in the States. San Diego area. Want me to notify authorities? Dominic stared at the message, feeling the familiar cold rage stirring in his chest. Thomas had escaped the full consequences of his actions, fleeing to Mexico while Vanessa faced the wreckage alone. Part of him, a significant part, wanted to see Thomas pay for his role in nearly destroying his family. But another voice spoke louder. Connor's bitter accusation, the realization that his son was becoming a mirror of his own worst qualities. The ruthlessness, the inability to let go, the need for complete control. No, he texted back. Let it go. Hector's response was immediate. You sure? After everything he did, Dominic started to type a justification, then deleted it. Yes, we redone with him. The next morning, Dominic called Vanessa and arranged to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown where they had once been regular customers in the early days of their marriage. She arrived looking better than he had seen her in months. The haunted, desperate look had faded, replaced by something more grounded. She had found work teaching photography at the community college, a modest position but one that seemed to suit her better than the high-pressure world of commercial work. Thank you for meeting me, Dominic began formally. Of course, she replied, remaining wary, uncertain of his purpose. He slid the folder across the table. This is everything linking you to Thomas's art fraud. The photos you took documenting the fake provenances, the editing work you did. I've had it since before the settlement. Vanessa stared at the folder, her face draining of color. Why are you giving this to me now? Because I'm done, Dominic said simply, not forgiving, not forgetting, but done. The children need us to find some way forward that does not involve constantly looking back. Especially Connor. He's becoming like me at my worst, Dominic acknowledged, calculating, untrusting, always planning 3 moves ahead. That's not what I want for him. Vanessa nodded slowly. What are you proposing? A truce. Not friendship, not reconciliation, but a functional co-parenting relationship. I'll support removing the supervision requirement. If you continue the therapy and parenting classes, we communicate directly about the children, no intermediaries. And Thomas is your past, not your present. If he contacts you again, you tell me immediately. If I find out you re-involved with him in any capacity, all of this goes to the prosecutor's office. His tone made clear this was non-negotiable. He texted me from Mexico, Vanessa admitted. I blocked him. Dominic nodded, satisfied with her honesty. He's back in the country. San Diego area. Fear flickered across her face. Are you going to? No, Dominic interrupted. Unless he approaches you or the children, I'm done with Thomas Bellwood. He took enough of our energy already. The conversation shifted to practical matters, schedule coordination, school events, the children's ongoing needs. For the first time in over a year, they spoke as parents rather than adversaries. As they prepared to leave, Vanessa asked the question that had clearly been on her mind throughout. Why the change, Dominic? You had everything you wanted. You won. Dominic considered this, then answered with unexpected honesty. Because winning was not enough. I destroyed your life, got full custody, protected my business, and my son is still miserable. Maybe there's something to be said for mercy even if it's not deserved. Is that what this is? Mercy? No, Dominic replied, standing to leave. It's pragmatism. Our children need both of us to be better than we've been. Nothing more, nothing less. 3 weeks later, the court removed the supervision requirement for Vanessa's visitations. The first weekend the children stayed at her new apartment, Dominic found himself alone in the family home for the first time in months, the silence both welcome and unsettling. His phone rang, Reed calling about a potential new project in Seattle. It's a good opportunity, Reed was saying, but it would mean significant travel for the setup phase. Before the divorce, Dominic would have immediately committed, trusting that the family would adapt around his ambitions. Now he found himself considering a different calculus. "Let me think about it," he replied. "I need to figure out how it would work with the custody schedule." After hanging up, he walked through the quiet house, pausing at Connor's room. On the desk sat a half-finished model plane, another father-son project that had been interrupted by the chaos of recent months. Beside it was a framed photograph of Dominic and Connor on a fishing trip when the boy was 7, both smiling with unguarded joy. Dominic picked up the model, examining the careful work his son had put into it, the precision, the attention to detail. Connor had always been methodical even before the divorce had turned that natural tendency into something harder and more defensive. His phone buzzed with a text from Connor. "Dad, Mom's taking us for ice cream. Is that okay?" The old Dominic would have analyzed this for hidden agendas, perhaps seen it as Vanessa trying to buy the children's affection. Instead, he typed simply, "Of course, have fun. Love you both." The response came quickly. "Love you too." Dominic set down his phone and returned to the model plane, picking up where his son had left off. The retribution was complete, but not in the way he had originally envisioned, not through Vanessa's complete destruction or Thomas's imprisonment, but through the slow, difficult process of rebuilding what mattered most, his children's sense of security and, perhaps someday, their capacity for trust. He had not forgiven. Some betrayals went too deep for that. But he had chosen to stop the cycle of vengeance before it claimed not just his enemies, but his children as well. In the quiet of his home, working on his son's model plane, Dominic Thorpe made peace not with his past, but with his future. The ruthless man who had systematically dismantled his wife's life remained. The father who would do anything to protect his children remained. But alongside them now stood a man who understood that true victory sometimes required knowing when to lay down arms, not out of weakness, but out of strength. It was perhaps the most difficult victory of all.